I'm a PhD candidate in Scandinavian Studies, and so I'm an instructor. And the courses that I teach, my research as well focuses mostly with medieval literature. In the last year, I've worked on developing an e-reader for one of our medieval texts, the saga of Hrothgar's Freysgothy. And so I'm going to describe to you now what I wanted to accomplish with Google Maps with this text. If you have the time, check on the website. I came here a month ago on October 9th and gave a talk about the e-saga project. And the goal of that project was to be able to give students all the sorts of resources that a medieval audience would have needed to be able to help them see the forest for all the trees and not get lost in the multitude of confusing names and places. And so what I wanted was a text that students would be able to tap on a name if they were confused and forgot who the character was and get a pop-up to remind them. But I also wanted a text that could give a pop-up and help them out with places, because geography is very important. All of these stories take place in Scandinavia, most of them in Iceland, and so the geography is very important to understanding the context of the stories and the actions of the characters, but are very difficult to follow with because the names are all foreign, and without good maps it can be very easy to get lost. So what I wanted was a text where you could tap on the name of a place, get a pop-up that tells you something about it, and then click on a link that would take you to a map that would zoom in on that exact location, so there would be no ambiguity when looking for one name among 100 on a map. So what I tried, well, first, in order to start this project, I had to translate the saga myself so that I'd have material to work with. Then I went to Iceland and took pictures of all of the things that seemed relevant to the story. A horse is principal to the central conflict of the story. But I took pictures of the farms where the story takes place, of the barren highlands that characters travel through, and the mountain pastures in between. And so after I'd been to all these places and done the research to identify locations, I then set about making a Google map that would have all this information in it. A lot of the places that are in the sagas are places that are still known today and you can still find on a map. In some cases, in many cases, the farms are built on the same locations that people occupied 1,000 years ago. But in other cases, there were places that are in highlands where no one lives, and so the stories and locations are sometimes confused and contested, and that's why you see in a couple spaces here a question mark besides a place where even with the best research that I can do, I can't be 100% certain of where a place is, but I can be relatively certain enough to create a map to give people an impression of where characters are traveling in this landscape. So with Google Maps and Google Earth, I was able to plot out the routes that characters take through the landscape. So you have multiple colors here which just represent different characters' travels. So sometimes you have 2 colors on one line just to represent 2 different journeys. And with each of these items of landscape, I've taken pictures in order to bring it to life. If there's a scene where characters, there's one scene where it's not a car chase, it's a horse chase. One character is following very fast after the other, and they go into a bog, and one of them gets bogged down. And this allows the one protagonist to catch up to the antagonist. And so I wanted to have pictures that represent this and what it means, having plants that are common and that travelers in Iceland say, oh, that's boggy ground, in order to give a real feeling for the landscape. And so a big part of this project was finding a way to annotate the landscape and a way to bring all of that sort of contextual information to life that someone who lives in this space has. So I wanted to be able to take those photographs that I took and put them into the map along with textual notes so that whenever you're reading about a place or about a route, that you can get more information when you're going through the map. And not only just having that same information that someone who lives in this landscape today has, but also have the perspective of my research to be able to talk about what's different in the landscape today from the way it was 1,000 years ago. So that's what I wanted. What I got was not quite that. What I wanted, remember, is I want to be able to tap on a name and go straight to that point on the map. And that just isn't possible with Google Maps. You can set a default view for your custom map, but you only get one default view. So the URL that you produce and you can link to is only going to go to one view. It's not going to go to 100 separate views and snap to one location. So every time you load the map, you start with it at this zoomed out view that contains all the data points. And then if I were to link at each specific location in the text, it would open up the map again and you would get a double layer of data on the same map. And so what this means is that when you're looking at a place, first time you open it, it has the name once. The second time you open it, you have the name twice. The third time you open it, you have the name 3 times. And well, that might not seem such a problem when you're looking at one location out on its own, but when you've got a cluster of names, it makes the map almost impossible to navigate. So this really was not a workable solution, anything that we could use for the text. So we didn't get what we wanted. And so what we ended up doing was putting just one link to Google Map and one link to download a KML for Google Earth at the beginning of every chapter. That way, the student or reader would be able to open up the Google Map and have it running alongside the iBook app for reading the text and be able to refer to it back and forth and use the index that comes with Google Maps to be able to snap to a location. So if you're reading in the text and you see that there was a man named Thorbjorn, he was Bjarni's brother and lived at Hol, then you can find Hol in the index, click on it, and it will snap you straight to it. So not exactly what we wanted, but still functional nonetheless. This is working for now, let's say. We're always hopeful that there will be better technology. I think that last night I just updated a new version of Google Maps as an app on my iPad, so now I have to play around with the navigational tools that it's changed. But the abilities for annotating and creating custom maps continues to get better. You're able to put in text. You're able to put in hypertext, so if you want to link out to another website, you can. I've put in pictures, but you can also put in videos, and not just videos, but YouTube videos as well. So there are a lot of possibilities. You can customize all of the icons that you have. I color-coded mine in order to represent green for natural features, blue for water features, and then yellow houses for locations where people lived. You can even import your own custom icons if the set that Google has to play with doesn't satisfy you. You can create different layers, so if you're working with a data set and you want to be able to view some data at one time, other data at another time, you can play with that, and in Google Earth you get the chance really to manipulate data, add in other layers. For my students, my goal was just to be able to present this information in a way that would be easy and engaging, in a way that a textual map would not be able to do, and to be able to incorporate the entire island and all of the points on it, rather than being limited by scale and the physical boundary of a paper map, which has to cut off certain data, and you have to either focus in close or go big. And here you have the option of doing both. So what I would do differently next time. As I said, this is a great resource for just being able to present all the information at once. In the case of these stories, you're just bombarded with character names and with place names. So there's not really any sense in trying to guide someone through the landscape step by step the way that the story progresses, because you're always being referred from one place and then another, and characters are moving back and forth. But if you wanted to guide your readers through, or your students through a landscape and have them visit point A and say something about it, and then visit point B and say something about it, and then visit point C, say something about that. One tool that I would recommend looking into would be an online tool called Story Maps, which you have in your additional resources on the worksheet. And this allows you to build exactly that type of map. They have a lot of custom tools, different templates for putting stories and maps together. So in this example, somebody has mapped out the settings of the director Shyamalan, and here you have just an example of The Sixth Sense, one of his movies. And so you have a map then of Pennsylvania in the background, and here you have number 2 lit up. And so when you navigate through each of your bars, you go from 1 to 2 to 3, it changes the video and the text that you get here and then snaps you to the next point on the map. So this is a way of doing a walk-through tour and guiding your readers step by step.
And you can upload pictures?
You can upload pictures. These are all YouTube videos that they've put in. So you're able to, you have a lot of possibility for customizing these and making it work for you. And they have many different templates. This one is interactive in a different way. You've got just the map of the United States, and so this maps out what the minimum wage is and what a living wage would be. This is calculated by professors at MIT using the living wage calculator. So here you can see our own Dane County with minimum wage of $7.25 and a living wage for a parent with a spouse and 2 children would be $23.46 and a gap of $16.21. And so you can then move your cursor over any one of these counties and it will change the data for you right here. So you can get data for any county in the United States. And then a third example, which doesn't really work with a screenshot so well, is a story about draining a reservoir in Oregon and reintroducing salmon. So this right here is a video of salmon swimming along. You scroll down and you get satellite photographs and text and pictures and maps, and so you can kind of scroll through it like other news articles online. And if you want me to show off any of these examples from story maps in the Q&A section, I'll be happy to visit the pages or show you, or to demo my own map as well. But that's my story, so thank you.